what exactly is magic? My favorite definition is shaping the world around us in accordance with our will, a slightly adapted version of Aleister Crowley's definition. So, if that's a definition of magic, one of the most potent magics that the queer community has and uses is coming out. Coming out is a shortened version of the phrase coming out of the closet. And this phrase originated with the idea of skeletons in the closet, as in things that you are hiding from the world about yourself or your family or your home life. The closet has also come to be a metaphor for the way it feels to be a not out queer person. That sense of being boxed in and enclosed and not free to move or really exist in the world. So coming out of the closet means escaping that boundary by speaking the truth of one's queer identity into the world. There's this common misperception that coming out is a thing that you do once. It's actually a thing you never stop doing. So coming out often begins with coming out to oneself. So some people are just born with an innate knowledge of their queer identity. Some people have to discover that. So for those who have to discover it, when you do, you come out to yourself. Then coming out also means telling other people. So very often this is a process of telling really close, trusted friends or family or chosen family, followed by ever greater circles until there aren't places left where you are intentionally not out. So, that might look like for one person telling close friends and then telling a wider circle of friends and eventually coming out at work or coming out at school, telling one's parents or grandparents or extended family. For trans and non-binary people, as well as bisexual and pansexual people, and sometimes aromantic or asexual people, the process of coming out can actually include a step of coming out to one's intimate partner or partners in a way that gay and lesbian people usually establish that before the relationship even begins. So for a lot of queer people, at a certain point, we are out intentionally every space that we could be out in, but you keep encountering new spaces, right? So you might move to a different place, you might get a new job, your kid might start a new school, you might be in a supermarket with strangers. There continue to be opportunities and need to come out. So for example, recently my son, who is in kindergarten, I usually drop him off and pick him up at school about 2 days a week. His other mother picks him up after school, and one day one of his classmates asked her if she was his aunt, and she said, "No, I'm his mother." And she looked confused because she knew me, that he had another mother. And my wife said, "Yeah, he has two mothers." And I think the kid sort of took that in stride, but there you go. Another place where we have to come out because that was a new situation for us. So coming out is a thing that never really stops. It is also, like I said, incredibly potent magic because coming out and speaking our truth into the world of our own identities is what shifts the world to being more able to receive and hold and care for queer identity. One demonstration of the potential of this magic is the way that the United States legal system went from relationships between people of the same sex being illegal in most places in the United States to marriage equality being enforced in all 50 states in a matter of decades. That is a hugely fast social change. And it happened during my lifetime. When I was born in 1981, this was an idea that felt very foreign to the vast majority of people. I was in my freshman year of college when the Vermont State Supreme Court ordered the Vermont legislature to either widen the definition of marriage to include two men or two women, or create another parallel institution with all the same rights and benefits. Vermont chose to do that separate institution route. I was in graduate school when the state of Massachusetts Supreme Court made a different decision and ordered the state to widen the definition of marriage. And I was out working in the world in time for the number of Supreme Court cases that first granted federal recognition to marriages performed in states that had widened the definition of marriage to include 2 men or 2 women, and then required all states to widen their definition of marriage. So, I am 41. That change happened in my lifetime. And it's, like I said, remarkably quick change. And one of the primary ways that change happened was queer people coming out to all kinds of people, largely actually our families. One of the interesting things about being a queer person is that our families tend to not be queer. So this conversation about rights and recognition and social acceptance happens in incredibly intimate spaces a lot of the time. Coming out at work shifted the idea about what jobs queer people might have in good ways. Coming out at school shifted policies around queer people in schools. And all of that contributed to that dramatic shift in what is historically a relatively short period of time. Now, to be clear, coming out does not always work quite that effectively. We have secured marriage equality in the entire United States for marriages that consist of 2 women or 2 men. But in a lot of states, you can still be fired for being gay, especially for being trans or non-binary. We have kept the definition of marriage to 2 people. We are seeing a new backlash against the subjects of gender expression and sexual orientation in schools in conservative states, and some of them even including a backlash against parents of trans and non-binary kids treating their kids well. So we are by no means in the post-homophobic, post-transphobic, or post-heterosexist world. But we still have that magic at our disposal. The magic of speaking our identities into the world in brave ways, in both intimate and public spaces, and demanding that the world change to meet us. I am generally not a fan of people using the phrase closeted to describe anything other than queer experience. So I think this is thankfully moving out of vogue a little bit, but there has certainly been a period of referring to all kinds of relatively superficial things that one might not choose to announce publicly as being closeted. For example, I'm a closeted Red Sox fan even though I live in New York City, or I'm a closet ice cream eater even though I present myself as a vegan, or something like that. What bothers me about this as a way of speaking is the extent to which it trivializes the experience of being in the closet, which is literally, for some people, a life or death thing. Not everybody survives the process of coming out, either because of an internalized hatred of queerness that leads to self-harm, or because of violence by other people. This is not a trivial thing. Like I said, it is also an incredibly potent magic, and we shouldn't downplay it. I will make, however, one exception for using the phrase coming out as anything other than queer identity, and that is in one's identity as a witch. Because they are similar in a lot of ways. Both queerness and witchcraft have a sort of edginess to them, a contradistinction to what is normal or expected. They're often seen as far more sinister than they actually are in practice. And there are real repercussions in both cases for some folks in coming out. In fact, I almost lost a job by coming out as a witch. Story for another time. Anyway, so I say this by way of saying to the straight people watching this that witchcraft and queerness have this in common. And so we can learn from each other, and specifically I think straight witches can learn from queer folks the potential and the potency of the magic of coming out. So I hope that you think about the ways that you can speak your truth into the world in ways that shape the world around you in accordance with your true will. Thanks for watching.